Well, blessings, everybody. Welcome back to our study of Spare Your People, Lord. This is the fourth course, the Kings and Prophets series. We're going through Joel here, so be certain that you read this portion of the book of Joel, the second chapter. Let's jump right into it. There's a lot to look at today. So we're dealing with the people returning to the Lord and a cry from the Lord through the prophet to the leadership of the people, to call for the people to return to Him. And the reason is that none can endure the day of the Lord. Part of God's judgment was in the locust plague. They'd already experienced something horrific that had happened there, but that was nothing compared to what was to come with the day of the Lord judgment. So were the people to show true repentance? Well, quite often when there was repentance, you would see it manifested in fasting, in weeping and mourning, the rending of the heart. And we did a little study on fasting. And most often fasting is abstaining from food and sometimes from drink. And many times Israel did this after they had sinned and they came before the Lord. They would fast before Him. And God heard him. God heard him. God would answer. And quite often fasting was accompanied by humility and prayer. It's a way of seeking the Lord in humility. So it's seeking Him with repentance for answers to requests, for guidance, or it's just seeking the Lord in fasting to be closer with Him. And so the nation of Israel fasted together. In Acts, we see that the church, prophets, and the teachers also fasted. Jesus mentions a time of fasting of the individual, a time when no one else would know. And so we learn from this passage also who God is. And by what we know about God's character and who He is the basis for returning to Him or turning to Him. We see in this passage, a passage dealing with the day of the Lord, that God is gracious, that He's compassionate, that He's slow to anger. Now that gives us some insight right here. It shows that Judah must have been against Him for a long time if He's slow to anger, that He's abounding in loving kindness, and that He's relenting of evil. And God, we see here that God will be zealous for His people. He will have pity on His people. He will give them abundance. They will never be a reproach among the nations again. And when you see all this, you say, wait a minute, this is yet to occur. This is true. This is a future type of event. We also see that the Lord will make up for what the locusts had stolen from them. In other words, what they have endured all these times, the Lord will make up for it. God will pour forth His Spirit on all mankind, not just Israel. This is what we see in the last few verses of the second chapter. We'll see more about this in the next lesson. And He says, whoever calls on the Lord will be delivered in that day. And then He tells us details. There's going to be signs and wonders on earth and in the heavens. There will be survivors who call on Him. And so the bottom line with everything that we see here is that there is hope for those who return to the Lord. In this particular situation, Joel 2, because of what they'd seen with the locusts, God is using this as an example. He said, in the same way that I've sent that locust army to judge you, I'm going to send forth the day of the Lord, and not too far away. But for those who will return to me, they will find hope. Then, now, and in the future. For us today, we need to return to the Lord and do so now, not wait for a day yet to come. I'm Dale from the Precept classes in Cullman, Alabama. I'll see you again soon. Goodbye.